Welcome to the Dr. Reilly Show. I'm your host, Dr. Anissa Reilly. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ask Dr. Reilly Show, the place where if you have questions, we definitely have answers. So we've been talking about sexual trauma this season, and we have a very special guest with us again today who's going to talk about sexual trauma in a very unusual way. All I'll say is loving someone without being loved is trauma. So today we're going to welcome my good friend, my sister girl, Toya Carter. Hey, Toya!
Hello, Dr. Reilly. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for agreeing to be here to talk about a very touchy subject. I always ask my guests, what does sexual trauma mean to you?
So, as you brought the subject to me, I was thinking like, right, trauma is just like, being touched in the wrong way or doing things that you necessarily don't want to do. But then when I think about my experience, it's just the word sex, how so it's supposed to be pure, but then our society or culture just changes it to be this derogatory or impulse meaning. For me, sex became younger like a rites of passage. Like it was the thing to do, not knowing the meaning, not knowing how pure it's supposed to be, but just like something to do. So it just changes how you look at the word sex. For me, growing up, about early teens, I experienced sex for the first time, not having a conversation with my parents, just hearing it from friends from the streets. Oh, okay, this is what happens when you lay down and then you actually have a boyfriend. It's like, all right, so since we're boyfriend and girlfriend, now the next thing is to have sex.
Let me stop you right there because there's one thing that you said that I think is very key, and that is when you said you didn't hear it from your parents. Mm-hmm. So would I be right in assuming that your parents didn't have a conversation with you, or they had a conversation, or what was that experience with your parents and sex about?
So we did not have the conversation. Again, like sex was just like this topic that you don't want to talk about. And even for me and my daughter, like I don't even want to say the word sex in front of her. And it should not be that way. It should be something that you're open to talk about. It is not something that you should be looked upon as something that you're doing that's bad. But it wasn't a conversation that was spoken in my household. So if it was like, you wait till you're older. That's something you do when you're older, but not in depth of the background, education of sex, because it is a part of life. So again,
Wait, but before you stop, but before you go there, only reason why is because I think this is very critical, because there are a lot of parents and out there who may not feel, having a conversation or may feel the same way. Mm-hmm. And then you also said something that I also think is very key. You said you don't even want to say the word sex around your daughter. Mm-hmm. And it's important. So what do you think is behind that? Because that's another level of trauma in itself.
Mm-hmm. I think because how I was raised and just brought up in the household, it wasn't. So, our habits come from how we were raised. So that's a habit that I have instilled in myself, and I'm bringing it with my child. But learning that this is a conversation that you should have. This is a word that should be able to be said and not feel away. I think just it being like it's just so secluded. Like the word was just so secluded from everyday
Sometimes
life.
It feels dirty to say it. Sex.
Right. It's
sex
like
is such a sex.
Yes.
Say it.
Sex. It's okay.
It's okay to say it.
It's okay. It is a part of life, and it should be something that is pleasurable. So that will bring me back to the first time that I had sex. And it was very much of like, okay, went to the boyfriend's friend house in their parents' bed, and
Oh, stop you there. How many of you out there has sex in your boyfriend's parents' bed?
right, right, and why and even that
Or in your
notion-
own parents' bed?
right. Well, and what was the mindset of that? Like, why do we
Yeah.
even go there? So
Well, I'm gonna stop you there. I think that is key because your parents' bed is a symbol in itself, right? Symbol of power, a symbol of being in charge, and that is the marital bed
right. So now,
if they're married. But where sex is supposed to happen. Cause I always wonder why you ain't doing sex in your own bed. Why you trying to go?
Right.
Why you going in your parents' bed? Cause it's power. Why you ain't doing it in your bunk bed, Johnny, Melissa? Why you ain't doing it in your twin bed
right,
in your bedroom? But you wanted to do it in the big old
the king
queen,
size
the king's bed,
the king's
the
bed.
king's bed, the queen's bed. But it's about power,
And that word has so much power.
and sex is power. So, like, I know you want to talk about. Just want to ask one clarifying question: is your daughter under 10, over 10?
She's under 10.
She's under 10. So, do you think that her age has something to do with saying the word sex and your uncomfortability, or is it more so how you were brought up?
I think it's both. I think both components play an aspect in that. So, of course, right, she's young, but even just like when we're watching television and they're kissing, I'm like, no, no, no. Like just afraid of where that's going to lead into the conversation.
Okay.
You know? But this is something that I'm learning and growing because she will at that age 10. Like, this is something that I have to be comfortable talking about. So,
And I'm glad you said that because I think that now leads us to your first time
Right.
with the boy in your parent bed.
and his friends.
Oh, and a
parents'
friend,
beds.
child, you go ahead, girl.
Right. So.
Not even his parents.
Right.
But
Because
you know what?
because you couldn't.
Right.
So
Couldn't do it at his house.
Where could you? Right.
Right.
So where was the next available place? So so we were there, in the bed, and I just remember feeling pain. So pain to where I was like creeping up on the bedpost, like this is what we was talking about? Like this is what this is supposed to be?
So let me freeze frame this moment. Let me freeze frame it. Your parents said, wait till you get older. You did it in pain.
Pain, right.
So no language, no conversation. I'm going to do it. Pain. Now I'm going to freeze frame that. And then we go to your daughter. Daughter don't want to feel comfortable about it. Don't want to talk about it with your daughter. Don't want to even engage in that. So then how much does your daughter now know about sex?
Right. And where is she getting it from?
Right. So do you have an idea about what she knows about sex? Because at her age, you said you didn't know anything. And now at her age, do you know what she knows or how much she knows?
Honestly, I do not. I know that she knows that if anything is she's watching, she better turn her head. And that's basically it.
Okay. So now we are creating another cycle. All right. So your parents said, not until you older. Mommy over here, oh, I'm uncomfortable. So now we're creating another cycle, unintentionally.
Unintentionally, but I'm very mindful now. So that cycle
That's what
will
this platform.
end.
See,
Right.
ask Dr. Reilly and you get some answers.
Right.
Become mindful of what you are unintentionally doing. So now you're in the bedroom and you are engaged in this act and it hurts. And you are, from what I understand you saying, is this what everybody was talking about?
Right. Like, this can't be what we all out here doing. And you think that this is a feel-good situation because this doesn't feel good. So to get back to the story, I stopped. I was like, no. This is not going into me. I'm stopping. So that was my first encounter of the whole, like, sex. And then the next time that I tried to do it was with another boyfriend, and it was a little more pleasure, but I still was like, what is the talk about? Like, I'm not fit. Like, what is this about? Because I didn't have any education on it.
Heartwarming for me to know that we were all part of that. What we did was we actually donated a basketball court for them. I think I mentioned to a couple of you last week that a few weeks back, some people out in Tanzania, Africa, had a conversation with us about them actually being involved and wanting to play more basketball and not having enough, not having a facility to do it. And one of the centers out there, Makuba Daycare Center, actually had some space. And on behalf of OSG, Dusko Poppington, what we did was we actually donated a basketball court for them that actually just launched or just opened this past Saturday. We were on a Zoom with them. It's actually the talk of Arusha, and so the talk of Tanzania right now. In the next week or so, I'm going to actually show the actual video of start to finish on how the project went down. But what was really, really dope, man, was being able to speak to the young people before they shot their first basket and to see how appreciative and excited they were about us. And it got to the point where I think they even came to Toya a couple of days later and asked, what can they do to be part of OSG? Well, the whole concept and what we represent as OSG is that it's more than just a bunch of adults talking about adult stuff. We about helping kids. And, it was a choice that we made because they reached out to us and asked if we could do that for them. And I it's no way that I was going to deny them that opportunity so being able to see the young people play ball on Saturday and then the babies play basketball, I think it was Sunday or Monday on their court, was just something that I think was very heartwarming for me to know that we were all part of that.
Close. Pray before. Yeah! Let's go, it's open.
Getting back to the story, so you're in the bed with your boyfriend and it's hurting.
Right, so we're there and I'm just like, no, I'm stopping. Like, I'm not even gonna go through with this. And, we stopped, and then later on with the next boyfriend, we encountered sex, and it wasn't as painful, but it's still, I didn't feel what I thought sex should feel like because I was not educated on it. And the way that people were talking about it in the streets was like, cloud nine, woo, right, you're gonna hear bells, and I'm just like, this is not it. I'm not it, and honestly, I didn't feel it until an adult. Like, to really understand my body, to understand what I liked. And so it was like, you're just doing it to do it. And that is what I feel like, the conversation needs to occur with your kids. I know that's definitely going to be the conversation. Like, you don't do things just to do it. Don't do it because it seems like that's the end thing or it's a rites of passage. Do it because you, first of all, you know what you're getting yourself into, so you're educated about it, and you want to. So honestly, I didn't want to do it.
You just said a whole lot, and I don't want it to get lost on the audience at all. First, you talked about, you didn't have the education of what sex is, right? But your education came from the streets. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of us hear it from the streets about having sex. But then it moved to a rites of passage. And so is the rites of passage a street thing?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And what does that mean? And then the other thing is, well, where should sex education come from if the streets gave you a lesson and it didn't match your experience?
And I definitely think it's a street thing with this, rites of passage. And for us to feel like once we have gone through this, like now I'm grown now. But
So streets have plus sex equal I'm grown. Why are we always trying to be grown? Why are we trying to be grown all the time?
because it looks good. It looks good. Everything looks good on the surface. But when you get deep, it's not a good feeling.
So if the street education on sex wasn't proper, where do you think the education from sex should come from?
I think it should definitely come from home first, just like any other education. Your parents are your first teachers. And then I definitely think that there should, and I know there was sex education later on, maybe when you in high school. I don't remember actually going through a sex education course, but yes, it should take place in a school atmosphere also. Not to the extent, but just protection, the right way to put on a condom for girls. Girls also have protection.
Because I know they do that. So that's all the technical stuff. But you talked about all of the internal stuff that happens. But what do you think your parent could have said to you, or what your parents should have said to you to give you some education, or what do you wish they would have said to you? Like if you could go back and sit down with your mom or your dad or your parents and say, we're going to have a sex education conversation. What are those things that you feel needed to be said that may have helped you along the way?
I think it would have been experience, to just keep it 100. Like if my mother would have talked about her first time. Because now I'm just thinking like, what would that conversation look like with my child? I would tell her what my first time felt like. And that, to me, that was not how this experience should have been. So I think just, because it's like parenting, we don't know what's the right and wrong thing to say, but if we keep it real, we let our experience out and talk about our experiences, then that helps. That helps, because then you feel like, hey, I'm not alone. Or, okay, this is something that someone so close to me went through. So I know that even if I am going through it, I'll get through it.
So what I'm hearing you say is that parents should prioritize having this conversation with their children.
And just be real.
And be real with it, and saying poo-poo for JJ.
Right, it's a
the
vagina,
cookie.
the cookie, yeah, the kitty.
All those little words.
Right, no, you're right.
Because somebody going to eat your cookie, then somebody going to play with you for JJ.
Right.
But being real. Penis.
Right.
Say it loud. Penis.
Penis.
Vagina.
Vagina.
Sex.
Sex.
And I think the more that we have conversations about it, and especially in the home, when our babies do go out into the streets, then they're able to judge the information.
And teach.
And teach.
So how about if one of my friends had this conversation with their parents? That was some information that I could have taken it. So, and we all learn from each other. And what better to have that topic spoke about amongst friends.
But what I also heard you say is that when you got older is when you understood your body. Now, wait a minute. You've been with your body.
Right. For how long?
For a long time. And
but 20 years later is
20
when
years
you
later,
start really understanding.
Talk about that. Because, they talk about little kids, exploring their selves when they're young, and little kids touching and feeling. And it's okay to touch and feel. But then you're saying when you got older, you understood your body. So, can you kind of reconcile?
So let's just go back to sex, right? So I was the type of person, and I guess I still am, but I want to grow from that, where sex determined my relationship and who I want to take it further with, right? So if I was not emotionally connected, physical, I didn't give you a time a day. And then if it was, I'm giving you the time of day, then maybe the other aspect is not Right. So I'm staying with it just because of
So
the
you doing
feel
it
that
to be doing it.
Right.
Or I
And-
got an itch and you scratching.
or that I'm doing it and my relationship is not good, but I'm staying in there because of this. Like you said, it's so powerful. Like sex is powerful. So as I got older, I was able to understand like what made me feel good, and then that's what I was searching for when I encountered sexual activity. And like you said in the beginning, when you are, what was the quote again? When you're
loving someone and not being loved back.
Right.
That's trauma.
Right, and sex plays a lot into that, and I feel like women, because it's so internal, when sex becomes so internal, we are taking all of that in.
Receiving
and
it.
I don't care what we say, because that was me too when I was younger, like, yeah, whatever, but it's affecting us internally. And you may not feel it at that moment, but later on down the line, you're going to feel that internal trauma.
And I'm glad you said that, because there's so many of us that be like, yo, I'm going to get a pair of shoes. I'm going to get a house. I'm going to get the money. I'm going to get that dude before he gets me.
Right, and it doesn't
I'm going to put it out on my terms. But
it doesn't. We say that, it sounds good. But internally, you have got to know that you are going through something. And sometimes that becomes your outlet, right? Sex becomes your outlet. What they say, it releases stress. But I guess just to be mindful. And as women, we need to, we kind of need to change that narrative as how sex is used. We're trading off for this and that. Like, no, sex is supposed to be, well, in my bubble that I live in, the world that I live in, sex is supposed to be pure. It's supposed to be something that you're sharing to bring life into, and both partners should have this connection. That's just me. That's how I view sex, and that's how I would want it in my life.
so what's the importance of knowing your body when it comes to sex? Because I think that many of us, we know how to move this hip. We know how to move it this way. We know how to engage. We know how to seduce, right? And so that is a way in which we believe, yeah, I know how to get him to do it. But what is the point of knowing your body when it comes to sex?
Well, I was going to say, because if you don't have that person, you should know how to satisfy your own needs. So,
That's a whole nother conversation.
yeah, that's a whole nother. I went side.
That's a whole nother.
to that, but just because I feel like, so if you know your body sexually, then you can start handling some of the internalizing what it is that makes you feel good and the things that don't make you feel good. Okay. Again, because we are just having sex to have it, right? So then you're just doing it to do it, and you're not even realizing how that energy is affecting you, what you're bringing inside of your energy space. So I just feel like you definitely should learn that at an early age before going through all these different partners. Like, know yourself. Know yourself
And
physically,
that's key.
emotionally.
Wait, knowing having different sexual partners. I told somebody one time, I was like, I wasn't hoeing. I was trying to have a relationship.
Yeah, right. And I think, so then that's our mindset, right? We think I'm having a relationship with you, but you don't think that you're having a relationship with me, and I'm giving you myself.
Right.
So when I give you myself, you're my man,
Right.
Because we had sex.
And then when you get hurt or traumatized, then you learn, well, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to get you before you get me. And so it becomes this trade-off. So why do you think we as women begin to use sex as a bargaining tool? Like, I want the house. Yeah. You ain't getting none until. Why do you think we do that?
So now that you say that, right, that when I don't get whatever I want, I'm like, nope. I can't even answer that question because it's power.
Yep, say
It's
it.
power. It's power. That's why. Sex is power. So how you use it then defines the circumstance.
And what does it say? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so women that understand how much power is right between these two little legs and use it may think that they are getting ahead, but it corrupts absolutely because it does something internally.
Yes.
You know, I always talk about the fact that I'm a woman of faith, right? And it's an exchange. It's a spiritual exchange. It is a covenant. It is something that can only be shared with a particular individual that you have committed to. You know what I mean? So it only is supposed to happen with that one person. And when you are giving yourself, and I'm going to put it in context of women. When we are in the bed, taking it in from this man, from this man, from this man, or if you put yourself in a situation where somebody's strapping on something and you taking it from the strap on,
Yeah,
right? You still leaving deposits of whatever they have. And that's trauma. And so how did you get to a place now where you saw that you needed to change that scenario for you, or are you still struggling to change the scenario?
I am still struggling. I feel like it's going to be a struggle, but because I'm mindful of it, I'm going to come out of it. I'm definitely going to come out of it. And this definitely is helping me now that I'm letting it all out.
But no, I appreciate you doing that because there's so many of us who may not have experienced trauma in the sense of rape, the traditional ways we think about it. But this right here brings itself to that too. And we don't want to continue the cycle with our children.
Right.
And talking about continuing the cycle with our children, there's something that you're doing to help reshape our generation. So tell the people, Toya, what you are doing, my girl.
So what I am doing is I have a daycare, Carter's Daycare. I am a teacher. I retired last year, so I've been teaching since 2001, so that's like over 19 years. And I just decided to string out on my own to open up a daycare. And I believe that the learning starts, first of all, it starts when they're in your womb. But the learning starts when they come out. And that's when I come into the picture to help with this partnership with parents and their kids to learn. And now that I'm thinking, I'm actually going to be thinking about how can sex education be taught at an early age and still be appropriate. So that's definitely going to be on my to-do list.
What else
but
are
I
you
am
doing?
And
Worldwide, because Toya, I don't know it, but I'm going to put it out there. Toya is worldwide. Let's talk about your worldwide status, boo.
So we are connecting kids internationally. Teach Love Off School Ground, TLOSG. And we basically want to connect children to network, to talk about entrepreneurship, for them to just realize that they are not alone. The same trauma situations that's going on in their immediate surrounding is going on across the world. So we are joining kids internationally, and we are going to be creating kidpreneurship for our international kids.
So she has kids in Tanzania, children in Scotland, children in the UK, children in America that have been connecting, talking, and making things happen.
Yes.
So Toya, how can people get in contact with you?
I have a Carter's Daycare for Instagram, Carter's Daycare for Facebook, and you can follow me, and you can check out the website, www.cartersdaycarellc.com.
So if you need to find a safe place for your babies, check out Carter's Daycare. If you need someone to connect children internationally, because you have some international kids, check out Carter's Daycare. But also, if you need to find the right language to have conversations with your babies about sex, then contact us here at Ask Dr. Reilly Show, and we'll connect you to the right people at the right time, at the right moment, because we want to make sure that we don't perpetuate the cycle and we stop the cycle of trauma. With that said, I want to say thank you for joining us again. I am your host, Dr. Anissa Reilly, and that's it. Peace out.